What's happening, Boot Junkies? Mike Dog Audio here, back with another video on home studio setup for voiceover. Today, we're taking a look at the Austrian Audio Hi-X25BT headphones. The folks over at Austrian Audio sent these over to me in consideration for this review, but like always, I'm not otherwise compensated for making the review. They have no editorial input on what I say, and most importantly, they won't get to see this video before you do. We're going to run through the features and specifications, and along the way, I'll give you my impressions to hopefully help you decide if these are the right headphones for you. The Hi-X25BTs, can I just call them the X25s from here on out? Thanks. These are closed-back, dynamic headphones, and at the time I'm making this video, they'll run you about $179. I'll have an affiliate link in the description if you're interested. They can operate in 3 different modes. There's an analog mode using a USB cable that ends in an analog jack. There's a digital mode where you're using a USB to USB cable and the headphones become like a sound card. And finally, as a typical Bluetooth headset. The BT in the model number indicates that these are the Bluetooth headphones in the series. And actually, I think that Bluetooth is the primary expected use for these. I'll say that up front, I primarily know Austrian Audio for their pro audio equipment. For example, their microphones, which are exceptional. These headphones could be used in your home studio, but they're not specifically labeled as studio headphones. They do have this professional moniker. I'm not sure that professional has a specific meaning in this case, assuming it's not just marketing speak, but we'll touch more on that in a minute. The drivers are 44 millimeters, and the frequency response claims to be from 12 hertz to 24 kilohertz, so exceeding the full range of human hearing. Now, I don't have a scientific way to quantify that, so I just used my ears and a comparison from a number of other headphones that I know well to try and ascertain sort of how they perform. And the first place I always look when evaluating headphones, and where I think headphones find the most challenge, is with bass. This driver size ensures that you should be able to hear and feel the bass when you're listening. And to try and see how they perform, I always turn to one track. I can't play it here for copyright reasons, but you can reference it. It's the track Why So Serious by Hans Zimmer for the Dark Knight soundtrack. I'll confess, I've never seen the movie, but this track is my go-to for checking the low-end capabilities of headphones. If you go over to track 1 on the Dark Knight soundtrack, look for the track Why So Serious, it should be track 1, and scroll forward to about 3 minutes and 20 seconds. It will lead you into this really incredible sub-bass part that puts any headphones to the test. Now, I find that compared to some of my other headphones, the X25's bass is a little quieter, but it's clean. I compared the same part on my Sony 7506s, and the 7506's bass, it distorts quite a bit. Even though it's not clipping, it doesn't sound nearly as clean, where the X25, the bass is quite clean. It's kind of hard to explain, but the difference is quite stark when you compare them side by side. But I have other headphones, for example, the much more expensive Fostex THX100s from Drop, formerly Mass Drop, that are known for their bass response. And in these headphones, the bass is both louder and clear. And those Fostexes, they're a whole different animal. They're more for recreational listening and not for monitoring. But I know how they perform, so it's a point of reference for me to see how the X25s fit. The X25s at less than half the price of the Fostexes have less bass, but the bass on the X25s is still clean compared to the ever-popular 7506s from Sony. So what I'm trying to say is that the X25s are not bass cannons by any means. The bass is not prominent nor overpowering, but it is clean, and I think it accurately represents the music. It's not artificially boosted or anything like that. If anything, I would characterize the sound of the X25s as more neutral. These are not necessarily designed to accentuate any frequencies in particular, which is perhaps what they mean when they say that these are professional headphones. assuming again that it's not just marketing speak. Austrian Audio does make headphones specifically labeled for mixing and mastering and for studio use. And so it wouldn't surprise me, considering it's the same engineering and same engineers, if the X25s are made in the same sort of vein towards neutrality and maybe have a similar sound signature as the bigger siblings. I'm not sure. But even if they're not specifically touted as monitoring headphones, they may share some of the characteristics of the bigger siblings. On the other end, though, on the treble side, these headphones shine on their high end. They are clear and they're clean without being aggressive or piercing. I've been able to listen to these for a long period without fatigue, as opposed to, again, something like the 7506s, which are good for recording in that these have a very, very prominent and ultra-detailed high end, which many professionals love because I think it exaggerates the high frequencies somewhat, which can help from a recording perspective to identify if there are unwanted clicks, especially if you're not the person doing the talking, if you're like a recording engineer. The X25s are clear and clean, but without that aggressiveness in the highs, so you can listen to them for long periods. Overall, from a sound perspective, I'd say these are very pleasant to listen to. This pleasantness perhaps is accentuated by the comfort in wearing them. I've used these now for a couple of weeks, and I've been very, very happy with the wearability of the X25s. Comfort is a big factor for me in headphones, and I will happily sacrifice a little bit of sound quality for an extremely comfortable wear. I've got some much more expensive headphones that hardly get any use because they are less comfortable, even though they may sound better to me than some of my less expensive headphones. The X25s, they are circumaural. They're around the ear with these very roomy ear cups. They completely surround my ears, and they're deep enough, this distance here, they're deep enough that the outside of my ear does not make contact with any part of the headphones. And that can go a long way for comfort. So if you might be looking for headphones, say, to wear at a desk for several hours a day, these might be a really good choice for you. The soft pleather that covers these is super comfortable. I haven't noticed that they get particularly hot inside. And also the headphones are quite light for their size, and considering there's a battery in them, at only 270 grams, which helps accentuate the comfort. They're in line with a number of my other non-battery operated corded studio monitors. They're made from a combination of plastic, some plastic parts, and some aluminum parts. And this part here, this critical connection of where the headband attaches to the ear cups is aluminum. And I think that means that these are going to be much more durable. Most of the times when I have headphones, if they break, it's this connection here. And this part here is metal on these headphones. So it's going to help with durability. You might be able to manhandle them a bit more than some others, which are plastic, where this part can break quite easily if you drop them, if you sit on them, if you do something untoward to them. This aluminum part can be really helpful from the durability. These are also closed back, which I mentioned at the top. This means that a lot less sound leaks out when you're wearing them. You'll be less likely to disturb your neighbors who might be sitting close to you or on the train or at your desk or anything like that. Closed back has both advantages and some drawbacks. The closed back design, as I said, keeps the outside sounds out. It attenuates quite a bit. I can't hear myself nearly as clearly. And it keeps the inside sounds in to some extent. The sound that leaks out of the headphones won't be particularly loud. And it can also help with bass response. Even though I said before that these are not particularly bass forward, they still have more bass than a number of my price comparable open back headphones. Now, closed back can also mean that the sound feels closer in. Some people might say that the sound stage is not very wide, and I'd say that that's true here. For the most part, the music sounds like it's happening between your ears. There's not sound that's necessarily far off to the left or to the right. And this is common of the closed back design, and it's common here. As far as Bluetooth operation, these operate pretty much like any other Bluetooth headset out there. There's nothing particularly unusual about it. The right ear cup is touch sensitive, so you can tap to play, tap to pause. You can change the volume by swiping up or down, and you can activate the assistant with a gesture, with a 3-finger gesture, that if you use an assistant on your phone. The gestures are slide up to turn up. If you want to just turn up one increment, you slide up and hold to continue turning up until you find your proper volume. Same thing for slide down. Slide it down for an increment, or slide down and hold to just continually turn it down. Tap once to play, tap once to pause, tap twice to skip ahead, tap 3 times to move back a track. If you're in phone mode, a single tap will answer and a single tap will end, and a double tap to decline. Now, this is a capacitive touch, so it helps to be firm or clear with your gestures. Really soft taps or swipes might not get recognized. One thing that I wish was offered on the touch panel is a gesture to mute the microphone. A touch gesture while you're in phone mode to mute or unmute would be awesome and really helpful for all the conference calls that we're on nowadays. In fact, to be honest, I would prefer either a no one-tap action for the phone, or a 1 tap to mute and unmute, and 2 taps to answer and 2 taps to hang up, and maybe 3 to decline, for reasons that I'll show you here in a second. This touch panel is generous. It's pretty big, which is both good and bad. Good that you can be somewhat inaccurate with the gestures and they'll still be recognized. But if you adjust your headphones and you put your hand, if any part of your hand hits the sensitive area, the music would stop, or you could accidentally hang up the call. You could accidentally answer the call while you're still putting them on. I'd like a more positive 2 taps to answer or to hang up. I've certainly, just by touching the headphones like this with my hand touching the cup, I've accidentally started and stopped music and could accidentally hang up a phone call at the same time. Also, I should note, these dots on the side, they look like LEDs, like unlit LEDs, but it's really just an indication of the part you're supposed to touch to get the headphones to respond. They don't light up or anything, which is good. The audio codec that is used for the Bluetooth is SBC codec. This is the most common codec for Bluetooth, and it means that it's going to pretty much work on any system that's out there. But it also means that it is the highest latency than some of the more specialized Bluetooth connections. Now, this latency is not a problem. It's not so significant if you're watching YouTube or Netflix. I did both of those things. I did not find any latency distracting in that case. But you can't really use the Bluetooth mode in the more professional settings, like what I do, recording voiceover or music, or any time where low latency, like sub 3 millisecond latency, is critical. It doesn't work like that for Bluetooth. As you can see, there is an onboard microphone, and frankly, it's nothing to write home about. It seems to be just your typical band-limited microphone that might work for phone calls and maybe Zoom meetings, but not much more than that. There are no highs and no lows, as you can hear. It seems to be optimized for the low bandwidth phone calls, which in the world of Zoom meetings and HD phone calls, you'll still sound like you're on a phone. With the progression towards high fidelity conferencing like Riverside.fm or Discord chats, this microphone is certainly lacking, which is a bummer since Austrian audio mics are typically so nice. This just seems to be your typical off-the-shelf mic. I don't know if it's being bandwidth limited in software in the headphones or if it's just the microphone, so I have no idea if this could actually be changed in any sort of future update to the headphones. That I have no idea. But now you at least hear what the mic sounds like. And there are also some additional considerations with the mic that you should be aware of that we'll talk about. You should note that the microphone only works in Bluetooth mode. If you're connected to the source with a cable, the microphone will not operate. That goes for both when you're in USB mode, the digital audio mode, and for the analog mode. So this means that you technically can charge and use the microphone at the same time, but while you're charging, you have to ensure that you're in Bluetooth mode. When you plug in a USB cable, the headphones switch over automatically to digital mode or analog mode, depending on the other connector. So if you're in digital audio mode, you may need to tap once on the power button to switch back to Bluetooth. If you're in analog mode, you'd have to disconnect it. So either make sure you have plenty of juice before joining a conference call or a Zoom meeting with the headphones, or know that you may need to switch it back and forth with a touch of the power button to switch between digital and Bluetooth. A USB-C cable can be used for digital audio if Bluetooth is not available or you don't want to connect via Bluetooth, or if you're charging, you can charge and listen. But as always, with the digital audio, you can't use the microphone. And as I said, it's just a switch. So you can charge and listen to music at the same time. There is a USB-C to analog 3.5 millimeter headphone jack and an adapter, so you can use it in analog mode, or if your phone, like my old one, still has a headphone jack, you can use these as analog, which means you can use them in a recording situation in analog mode with zero latency. And in this mode, I found that the headphones could go quite loud. The impedance is only 24 ohms, so a modest amplifier, or your phone, if it still has a jack, should be able to drive these quite well. And that means that the headphones can work when it's powered off or it's dead. But, and there's a little but here, according to the manual, the battery does need to have a tiny bit of charge left for the analog cable to work. I think it's just to make the USB-C jack active. So if your battery is fully discharged or not operational, it might not work even as analog headphones. You'll need to have at least some charge in the batteries. It's very little, but you need to have some in order to even make the analog cable work. So over the years, you might not be able to rely on these as wired headphones if the battery has swollen or died. You will have to occasionally charge them just to make them work in analog mode. I sent an email over to Austrian Audio about battery replacement once the warranty period is over, and they're not offering a battery replacement. They indicated to me that they implemented circuitry inside that prevents overcharging and excessive discharge to help preserve the life of the battery. These lithium polymer batteries preferred to sort of stay in the middle of their charging range. And they said that with their testing, you should be able to, even after 5 years, still expect the battery to be at 80% capacity with that protective circuitry. So they should last a long time, and I can appreciate that. But it does sort of rule them out as really, truly long-term headphones that you might expect to keep for a decade or so. And perhaps that's too much to ask of headphones, but I know there are lots of people who have their 7506s that they've kept these for years, bordering on multiple decades, and they still work just fine. They're not Bluetooth, though. At $179, like so much of our electronics today that are battery operated, these become semi-disposable after 5 to 7 years. I do hope that they'll last longer than a typical phone, at least. But it's disappointing that you can't change the battery. I wish that there was a way to do so. So those are my overall impressions of the Austrian Audio Hi-X25BTs. I'd like to thank Austrian Audio for sending these over to me for consideration for this review. I'm very grateful for it. And that's all I have for you today. Hopefully, if you found this interesting, if you found it helpful, just to help you make your buying decision. I hope that helps. That's all I'm really trying to do here. That's all I have for you today. Now, go get yourself a pair of headphones, get yourself a microphone, get out there, record something amazing. Thanks. We'll talk to you next time. Take care.